The images are still scary. The images are still terrifying. The violence is still happening. The damage is still being done. Neighborhoods in cities are still being reduced to rubble. Missiles are still landing just kilometers away from the leadership of Ukraine. But on day 21, the 3-week mark, something has changed in the tone and the tonality between Russia and Ukraine. It's no longer hostile. It's no longer just about warning each other. It's no longer full of belligerence and animosity. There is hope for a truce that could be on the horizon. Ukrainian President Zelensky has acknowledged that Ukraine will not become a NATO member. Ukraine's bid to get NATO membership, remember, was one of the centerpieces of this entire crisis. Putin said, if you join NATO, we will invade you. Zelensky also said that he sees room for compromise in the ongoing talks with Russia. Very importantly, that's a sentiment that has been echoed for the first time by the Russian side. On the other hand, Kremlin has also shown willingness to engage in these negotiations in a business-like atmosphere. With both nations being ready to compromise, it looks like compromise could be the way out from this ugly conflict.
Ukraine has suffered an unprecedented human tragedy in the face of the Russian invasion. Now, after 21 days of fighting, there is hope of a truce. The man who is leading the war against mighty Vladimir Putin, Ukrainian President Zelensky, says he sees room for compromise in talks with Russia. This comes as Moscow has stepped up bombardment of Kiev, targeting even residential areas.
І працювати кожному на своєму місці, кожному, в тому числі нашим представникам, нашій делегації у переговорах з Російською Федерацією. Це важливо. Складно, але важливо, тому що будь-яка війна завершується угодою. Зустрічі тривають. Як мені доповідають, позиції на переговорах звучать вже реалістичніше. Проте ще необхідний час, щоб рішення були в інтересах саме України.
The main provocation for the war was Ukraine's bid to get membership of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Zelensky has said Ukraine will not become a member of NATO.
Зрозуміло, що Україна не є членом.
We realize that Ukraine will not become a member of NATO. We understand this. We are adequate people. Kyiv needs new formats of interaction with the West and separate security guarantees.
Я радий, що наш народ починає це розуміти.
Earlier, Russia's foreign minister had said Moscow does not aim to overthrow the Kiev government and it hopes to achieve significant progress through talks. Zelensky has climbed down and is no longer interested in NATO membership. Kremlin has shown signs of willingness to engage in negotiations. With both nations making climb down, diplomacy, it seems, will succeed in ending the war that has cost both nations heavily. Bureau Report, India Today.
Rajesh Pawar joins me live from Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, which has been under attack. Rajesh has been reporting from, the sites of many of those attacks. He's become the only journalist to visit many of those bombed sites. Today, there's a curfew in place, Rajesh, in Kyiv. The first question I want to ask you is the situation in Kyiv right now. There's a curfew in place. How is that unfolding? What was that curfew in place for? What is the situation in the capital, Rajesh?
Shiv, you can hear in the background the air siren, air warning siren, which is going off. This has gone off a few times since morning. There have been about 3 blasts since morning today. One of them quite close to the center, which indicates that it was in the city. 2 could have been in the outskirts. And can you hear the sirens? The sirens are still again till morning. From morning till now, it was almost quiet, but the sirens again started off. But that does not mean much today. In these days in Ukraine, sirens keep going off. People have got used to it because that's a regular feature now. But what they have started getting used to now is the bombing inside the city. Today there were 3 blasts. Yesterday morning, when we were reporting about this building which was bombed in Akademesio district, I'm not able to pronounce his name properly. And there, after that, there were many more blasts yesterday. Day before yesterday also, there was a bombing of a residential block in Oblon. So now inhabitants inside Kyiv are getting used to these blasts at a regular basis. Today, since today morning, there were only 2 to 3 blasts. But what I've come to know from people who are on the outskirts, that they can hear continuous firing between the two forces, between the Ukrainian and the Russians, people who are living towards the northwest of the city, which is very close to the apartment block which was bombed yesterday. And they can hear the bomb blasts, the smaller ones, at a regular interval, which means intense fighting is going on between Russians and the Ukrainian forces as we speak now. Though diplomacy is going side by side, and which is a normal thing in this such scenario.
Yes.
And it looks like diplomacy is also making headway, but at the same time, fierce fighting is also going on between the two forces.
Okay, so diplomacy is making some headway, but the fierce fighting also taking place, including very much inside Kiev. Rajesh, stay with me. We've got some breaking news coming in now. Since you mentioned diplomacy, some breaking news coming in. Okay, now the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has just posted a video from battleground Kiev amidst this entire curfew. President Zelensky says he's at home and is defending Ukraine. Remember, Kiev, as Rajesh just pointed out, is under a strict curfew as it braves the most difficult and dangerous 36 hours. President Zelensky has just put out a video saying, I am at home and I am still defending Ukraine. It's a video intended to motivate the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian military that's still out there. Take a look.
Доброго дня. Щодо останньої дитячої провокації, що я не пропоную скласти зброю. Я можу пропонувати скласти зброю тільки військовим Російської Федерації і повертатись додому. А ми вже вдома, ми захищаємо свою землю, своїх дітей, свої сім'ї. Так що ніяку зброю ми складати не збираємось до нашої перемоги.
I want to ask the big questions on day 21, the 3-week mark in this entire conflict. These are the big questions we're asking, and this is what guides our coverage as well. Question number 1, after 21 days, is compromise finally on the table? Question number 2, has President Putin failed to meet his objectives to overwhelm and control Ukraine within a short period of time? Has he simply lost control, miscalculated, underestimated, and basically failed to wrest control of Ukraine in a short period of time? Number 3, did Putin underestimate the global response to the invasion? His country has been saddled with crippling sanctions. How much more can Russia actually take? Question number 4, how long can talks and destruction run parallel? You just heard Rajesh say that even while diplomacy is making headway, the intense fighting is continuing. How long can the two continue to happen and run parallel without one affecting the other? Question number 5, does President Putin need to take Kiev to achieve his objective? And is that why the intense fighting is still very much on at this point of time? Rajesh, coming back to you. Okay, before I'll come back to Rajesh in just a moment. I want to bring in Rostislav Pavlov. He's a member of parliament from Ukraine. Joins me live. Also with us is Sofia Fedina, also a Ukrainian member of parliament. Welcome to the both of you. Sofia, if I could quickly come to you first. Diplomacy appears to be making headway. We're talking now on day 21 of the conflict, of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Okay, what a pity. We've lost Sofia's line. We'll go back to Sofia. Mr. Pavlenko, if I could put that question to you. It looks like both sides, both Ukraine and Russia, for the first time in 21 days, are talking about the possibility of some kind of compromise. Is this something you're taking seriously? Do you think there's a possibility this could be a turning point? Mr. Pavlenko?
Yes. So, unfortunately, it is too simplistic to say that it is a Ukrainian desire to join NATO is the reason of the war. The true reason of the war is the Moscow's desire to deprive Ukraine of its independence, and Putin and his negotiators are outrightly saying precisely this, commenting on the negotiations. Already today, amidst all the optimistic comments, we heard that they still speak of the so-called denazification. No one understands what do they mean. They continue to speak of demilitarization, which is absolutely impossible, as it was Moscow forces that attacked Ukraine and commit atrocities on Ukrainian soil. So the only way to get to peace is to force Moscow, force Putin to peace. And that is how international sanctions, international help to Ukraine actually bring peace to happen.
But how do you think that will happen, Mr. Pavlenko? The sanctions are continuing, but the military operations in your country are not stopping. The talks are happening, the sanctions are being imposed against Russia, but the move to besiege Kiev is continuing. We saw attacks inside Kiev over the last 48 hours.
Look, it is for 3 weeks now that Putin tries to encircle Kiev, and these attempts fail. Ukrainian army stands, Ukrainian defenses stand, Ukrainian society is united, and it is pushing the enemy back from city of Kiev, from other points where the Russians attack. And we ask the world to help us to withstand this. We ask the world to help with armament to our army, to help with nutrition and other needs to sustain this pressure of Russia. And the most we ask to exert pressure on Russia, because the sanctions start to work. We see that Russian society undergoes hardships already, but to force Putin to peace, you need to increase this pressure to, first of all, deprive Putin of revenue from selling his energy sources, as the United States did. The whole democratic world should follow suit, and then it will send a very clear signal to Putin that his country will be in danger and that he should get this war to the end, because it is only in the head of Putin and maybe his narrow entourage to stop this war.
Mr. Pavlenko, thank you very much for speaking to India today. I'm going to try and bring back Sofia Fedina, put some questions to her as well on this. We've got more breaking news coming in now. Like I said, the diplomacy continues, but the combat actions, the military operations are not pausing to make way for these discussions, because obviously the military operations are serving as leverage for Russia. Here's more breaking news coming in now. Okay, new images just coming in of another school that's been bombed, apparently by Russian troops, with heavy shelling at a Mariupol school. This is in eastern Ukraine. These are images coming in of a bombed school that's in shambles after what the Ukrainian government says is another round of Russian shelling. Remember, the city of Mariupol, which is in the eastern part of the country, has seen incessant attacks. The city has been completely besieged. And these are images from Mariupol of the fresh combat activity, military operations in and around the city. Mariupol is close to the coast. It's on the coast. It's near the Azov Sea. And these are fresh images coming in of the latest school that has come under attack in Mariupol. There are no people in that school. The Russian forces, when faced with such allegations, have said that civilian areas, residential neighborhoods, schools and other community centers have been taken over by the military of Ukraine and have thereby become legitimate military targets as part of this operation, and that the Ukrainian government is using civilians as human shields in the entire crossfire. These images have come out from Ukraine now of a school that's been reduced practically to debris in the city of Mariupol.
Наша красавица, опорная школа, которую только сделали. 66-я школа, наша красавица, опорная школа, которую только сделали. Смотрите, во что она превратилась.
Bruised and battered Ukraine refuses to bow down, however. Despite relentless Russian strikes, the Ukrainian spirit to fight back remains undeterred. The question is for how long? It's been 21 days. The war-torn nation is doing everything it can to stall the Russian advance, even as the enemy troops encircle the Ukrainian capital. Here's a detailed report of how Ukraine is fighting back.
Three weeks of hellscape. A ravaged country, flattened and punished by a superpower. Its capital under siege. Armed forces in disarray. Cities burning. But Ukraine continues to show remarkable resilience. Ukrainian guns are far from falling silent. These night images of incredible Ukrainian counter-strike. These night images of incredible Ukrainian counter-strike show how the overwhelmed, outmanned and outgunned nation is still fighting back. Still taking the war into enemy camps. With a brave and determined fight back. The barrage of attacks so far successful in stalling a full-blown takeover of capital Kiev. By the far superior and much better armed Russian invading force. Ukraine soldiers with tank-killing guns were seen destroying Russian armored carriers and tanks with the trademark Z symbols. The Ukrainian projectiles landing with deadly precision, taking out the Russian combat vehicles. Ukrainian defense also released video of Russian supplies and columns of equipment for its convoy in outskirts of Kiev, coming under massive bombardment. Drone images capturing the full impact of large-scale explosions.
You know, Ukrainian forces are highly motivated. They're fighting on their own ground, and they're also highly mobile, unlike the Russian forces, which are sort of not mobile at all, really.
While fighting back hard, Ukraine has not abandoned peace efforts. President Zelinskis asserted once again that his country has no plan to join NATO.
We realize that Ukraine will not become a member of NATO. We understand this. We are adequate people. Kiev needs new formats of interaction with the West and separate security guarantees.
Bruised, battered, bleeding, yet biting back. Can Ukraine still do the unthinkable? With Rajesh Pawar in War Zone Kiev. Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's go straight across now to Kiev, where India Today's Serhiy Mirankov reporting live. Serhiy, it's day 21. 3 weeks of the Russia-Ukraine invasion are completed today. We've just heard from your country's President Zelensky saying that he's at home and he is defending the country. What is happening in Kiev? The talks are on. Both sides are starting to talk, Serhiy, about some kind of possible compromise. Do you think, seeing everything around you, do you think that's possible?
Good day, India, good day, studio. Very hard to say because like maybe 15 minutes ago, there was announced an extra alarm of the air forces of Russia attacking our positions, but it's still quiet around because probably our forces are working well, because last night was quite terrible. There was lots of attacks on all Ukrainian cities that were bombarded by Russians. One rocket, as we know for this moment, get into the house. It's almost a downtown near in Kiev. It's almost at its heart, near zoo, near the university. There are no military around there. Peaceful people, peaceful around it. But right now it's destroyed. Due to the words of Zelensky, yes, you're right. He's in Ukraine. He's in Kiev. As most of the people of Ukrainians who are fighting, who are defending their land right now at this moment. And as I used to say, we will win. I'm not saying we will win by Ukraine, we will win by the whole world, which gathering with us, which united with us, which understand all the risks of Russian invasion into Ukraine and the future invasions into other countries in Europe, Asia, India, etc.
Serhiy, what's happening in Kiev especially? You know, we've seen attacks happening inside Kiev, in the last 48 hours. Are those attacks increasing? There's a curfew in the city right now. What do you see happening next in Kiev?
Like all the services in Kiev works well. Right now they are stabilizing the situation in the nearest area. So today our security services with militarians, with the police, doing lots of attacks, searching enemies that could be in our city for this moment, because they are like waiting for a chance for a strike attack on the Kiev borders, but still no any chances for them because more than 40-50 kilometers distance between Russian forces and Kiev, and our forces are doing their job very well, striking to their heart, destroying their infrastructures like the gasoline, like the food. But Russians, despite of this, still taking hostages, as we all know, in Ukraine, in Bucha, in others, Kiev suburb, especially in Mariupol, in hospitals. You know everything, much more than I can tell you.
Okay, Serhiy, thanks very much for getting us that. Stay safe. We'll keep coming back to you. Relentless attacks, bombardments, civilian killings, the gory sight of debris destruction has become synonymous with the Russia-Ukraine war, even as Ukraine continues to defend its territory for 21 days and running. Missile attacks in Kiev and airstrikes in Lviv paint a truly disturbing picture of the war front. Here's everything that's happened in the last 24 hours as far as the military operation is concerned.
Death and destruction everywhere. From capital city Kiev,
a complete building has been destroyed, and there was another blast which I saw just before this. It was in the middle of a road. Nearby buildings were damaged, but it fell on a broad road, so not much casualties. But here, I believe, few people have died and a lot of them were injured.
To Ukraine's western city of Lviv.
Air raid sirens up again, blaring in the city of Lviv. People have been going into the bomb shelters. Not many, quite a few of the apartments over here do not have bomb shelters, but the parking and the basements are where they're moving.
Russian missiles are raining misery. This 4-story residential building in Kharkiv was reduced to rubble in seconds, killing at least 2 people. Ukraine has alleged Russian airstrikes have made evacuation attempts dangerous. The relentless Russian assault and the West's risk-averse assistance has forced Ukraine to climb down. The country has reaffirmed it will not join NATO.
4 high-rise buildings in Kiev were bombed this morning. Dozens of people were dead. They shell schools and universities. It is clear that Ukraine is not a member of NATO. We understand that. We are rational people. For years, we have heard about the alleged open door policy, but we have already heard that we will not go in there.
While Russian forces are advancing, the war is proving a costly affair for Moscow. The UK has imposed sanctions on 370 more Russian elites. Other US allies are also expanding sanctions to cover more Russian firms and oligarchs.
It's important for Canadians and the world to know that Canada will continue supporting Ukraine and its independence, integrity, sovereignty, including its right to defend itself.
Russia has hit back. It has vowed to reduce dependence on the West.
We will solve the problem, and the solution will be to no longer depend on our Western partners, be it governments or companies that are acting as tools of Western political aggression against Russia instead of pursuing the interest of their businesses. We will make sure that we never again find ourselves in a similar situation and that neither some Uncle Sam nor anybody else can make decisions aimed at destroying our economy. We'll find a way to eliminate this dependence. We should have done it long ago.
Since the start of the war, hundreds of civilians have lost their lives to Russian bombings. 2.8 million people have fled the war in search of safe zones. The 5 rounds of talks have so far failed to yield a ceasefire. Bureau Report, India Today.
The war in Ukraine has disrupted the lives of Ukrainians, to say the least, including access to healthcare. A medical facility in the capital city of Kiev has been moved inside a bunker to evade the relentless Russian shellings, which could come anywhere. Nobody even knows where the next attack will be. We visited one of them. Here's our story. Russia's military might has met a very resilient Ukrainian army. Putin's forces have suffered some pretty big and bitter blows in the 3 weeks of the conflict so far. Thus far, 4 top Russian commanders are believed to have been killed in Ukraine as part of the conflict. Here's a report on all 4.
Armed to the teeth, tough, ruthless, the Russian military is one of the most intimidating forces in the world. But the Ukrainian resistance has been equally fierce. Ukraine has inflicted enough injury on the aggressor. Another top Russian commander, Major General Oleg Mityaev, has been killed. He died during a fierce battle with Ukrainian troops in Mariupol. He was the commander of 150th Motorized Rifle Division. This is not the first blow for the Russians in this war. Earlier, a key commander of the Russian tank regiment, Colonel Andrei Zakharov, was eliminated in Kiev after a heavy fight. Zakharov was a recipient of the Order of Courage from Putin himself in 2016. In a fatal blow to Russia's crack special forces, Major General Vitaly Gerasimov, the Chief of Staff of the 41st Army, was killed in Kharkiv. Russia also lost the head of the 7th Airborne Division Major General Andrei Sukhovetsky. A war hero, the general's loss is being seen as a bitter blow to Putin's crack units. A sign Russia's assault isn't going to plan.
The key difference now between the Ukrainian and the Russian forces is the morale component. The Ukrainians have fought very well and morale is very high, and that is infectious. And it is clearly not just between the Ukrainian professional soldiers, but also the Ukrainian civil society as a whole. They see this as a fight for national survival. And on the Russian side, morale is very low.
The death of the highly decorated veterans could be a major demotivator for the Russians and a morale booster for the Ukrainian defenders.
The United Nations has opposed Russian TV journalist's arrest after she interrupted a live news bulletin in Russia's state TV channel 1 on Monday. The woman protester could be heard shouting, "Stop the war, no to war," holding a placard as the news anchor continued to read from her teleprompter. Take a look at what happened to her.
An anti-war protest live from a Russian newsroom.
Сотрудничество в рамках союзного государства, а на совещании в правительстве обсуждали, как сохранить...
Marina Ovsyanikova, an editor at state-run Channel 1, ambushes a news telecast, holding a placard that said, "No war, stop the war. Don't believe propaganda, they are lying to you."
рамках союзного государства, а на совещании в правительстве обсуждали, как...
The protester could be heard shouting, "Stop the war, no to war," as the news anchor continued to read from her teleprompter. The channel immediately switched to a news report while the protester was removed. Ovsyannikova was arrested on Tuesday, a day after she staged the protest. As fear mounts over her safety, the UN Human Rights Office has asked Russia to ensure the journalist does not face reprisals for her protest on live television. Ovsyannikova could face charges under a new law against discrediting the armed forces. The law passed on March 4th bans the spread of alleged misinformation about the use of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Ovsyanikova's is not the first protest against war.
Да, еще раз заходите, еще раз вам придется зайти на YouTube-канал «Дождь».
Earlier, TV Rain, one of the independent media outlets in Russia, shut down after receiving threats from Russian authorities over its coverage of the invasion of Ukraine. The news channel staff had resigned on air after declaring no to war. As the Russian war on Ukraine continues, more voices are finding courage to question President Vladimir Putin. Bureau Report, India Today.
And on day 21, the most defining images of the war from the last 24 hours, we've captured all of them, we've collated them, and we'll show you what they tell you about where things are in this conflict. The big defining images after this break. Stay with India Today.